Okay, Chalk Talk. Guys, we have Dr. Joanna Lane here, who I've had the pleasure of doing a podcast with, which is how we have met. But she works at the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association. So, for those of you that don't know, each college coaches and high school coaches and then coaches in general, each sport has their own coaches association that is like their national member association. So, basketball coaches have one, volleyball coaches have one. And the Fast Pitch Coach Association is actually housed and homed here in Louisville. So it kind of just works out that we met a couple years ago via podcast, and now we're neighbors, so to say. Dr. Lane, I wanted to say thank you for being here with us today. Really appreciate you taking the time. We have a good group here. I know they're going to ask some really good questions. And so I'll start off by just saying, this is a leadership class. And I also like for our students to understand that everybody's path kind of looks differently. Coaching or college athletics or any type of anything related to athletics is very up and down, crazy circles all the way around. Could you share a little bit about your job now and how you got there, like the path to getting where you are?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. My name is Joanna. It's completely fine. Call me Joanna, please. I am from Circleville, Ohio, which is a tiny little town in central Ohio. My mom and probably half of my family started as public school teachers or administrators. So from the beginning of my time, I thought I would be a high school coach and a high school history teacher. I have a history degree undergrad, and never thought I'd be where I am. So it's the path thing is totally true. As the senior director of education, which is my title for the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association, I get to work with college coaches specifically. Mostly, I work with our Division One coaches. I spend the majority of my time right now trying to understand some NCAA legislation and all things House Hubbard and otherwise, in serving our coaches that way. But I also work with our travel ball coaches because a lot of our youth coaches, that's their primary interest. They want to know what's going on with Division One, what's happening with rules. And we have 7,000 members in our coaches association. So we have anything from a mom or dad who's coaching 8U for the first time and they're trying to find out how do I teach them to hold a bat to the all-time winningest softball coach in collegiate history trying to cement a legacy and leave the sport better than they found it, which means I never have the same day twice, which is a lot of fun. Right now, we're working on our national convention. We host every year in a different city. We'll be in Dallas, Texas this December, doing 4 days of all things education. We have about 2,000 coaches that come to that in person. So that's always a lot of fun. It's not held with a championship, which is different than some other coaches associations, but it means everybody's happy because no one's lost a game yet. So everybody's pumped and they're there and sharing and collaborating. Sometimes when they're in their championships or it's at the Final Four, you don't have that luxury. So we enjoy that time. And then, really getting ready for the winter, we do 8 regional coaches clinics, which are fun all over the country, just 2 days more towards high school and youth coaches. And then the season starts and we're full go in championship mode. So it's a little bit of a cyclical job, a little bit of a repetitive calendar, but like I said, never the same thing twice. So that's the day to day. Does that work? You have any questions on the day to day, or you want me to hit the path right away?
She's talking to y'all.
No questions yet. It's cool.
I
Um,
I think we might have one.
yeah.
No, I was ready for the path.
You ready for the path? All right, cool.
Yeah.
Here it comes. Passing it up. Like I said, I grew up with a elementary school teacher for my mom. The best advice she ever gave me was to get to know the parents so you can forgive the children. And that worked really well as a coach and going through my experiences. When I graduated from my undergrad, I played collegiate softball. When I graduated, I went to Georgetown College here in Kentucky. It's an NAIA school, very small, 1,500 or so people. I went to Florida State to be a graduate assistant and talk about night and day. I mean, we went from buying our own sweats and doing all the fundraising to, this massive budget, national prominent program. And I really can't thank Joanne Graff, Dr. Graff, who was the head coach there forever, enough for giving me the chance. And she always made it a priority to hire a graduate assistant that wasn't a Division I athlete. And I think that's amazing. And I don't think we do that enough because a lot of times in coaching, we defer to, well, if you were a really good player, then you're going to be a good coach. And that's just not always true. And so thankful for Joanne for setting me on the path. But Joanne was also a board member of the NFCA. So in 2002, when I started grad school in the fall, it was an expectation for me to join our professional association and learn and serve. And that I ended up in my coaching path working for 4 different Hall of Famers, and it was an expectation all the way, which led me to my job now. So even as I spent time as an assistant coach at Northern Illinois University and Central Michigan University, and then as a head coach at South Dakota State University, there were always things that led me to the association. And then the last thing I did as an assistant at Central Michigan University, I served as a board member. I was a vice president in the board here, and we had an executive director change. And I told our new executive director, hey, look, I don't know what you're going to do, if you're going to hire someone to do sponsorships or if you're going to hire someone to do education. But if you're going to hire someone to do education, I'm in. I want the opportunity. And that's the route she went. And I followed her here in Louisville and brought my husband and my 2 kids, and we have loved it. We've been here. This is the start of the 9th year, which is just crazy that we've been here that long. It's a very transient job, collegiate athletics and coaching in general. So it's really nice to feel a little bit more settled. That's a rare feeling. And then really, I think the commitment I've had to education my whole life, it was always a personal goal of mine to earn a doctorate. I don't think it will ever result in a higher salary for me. It was more of just something I wanted to do. I did that while I was coaching at Central Michigan, and the topic was on mentorship. And that's just a really big part of what my career path has been and what we try to do here with our other coaches is grow the profession. So I think that's everything. Bert, I don't know if you had a question, feel free to jump in, but that's at least the short version, I think. I hope that was short.
That
Yeah.
was
Uh, Joanna, your path, that's very interesting. My own personal path is that I started out in support staff of football. Now I work in athletic facilities. And one thing I've just noticed about the profession of the sports industry, I just see I wouldn't call it favoritism, but I see do you think it's important that like you said, like you weren't a Division I athlete, like I just feel like people who weren't Division I athletes just have a bigger chip on their shoulder and just have more to prove. Do you think it's important for it's important for coaches when they're building their staffs or even in athletic departments, like it's important to build staffs that probably have never had any experience, who probably have never been a Division I athlete, who just have something more to prove, and because that's gonna take them very far. Do you think that's important?
I think anytime you put a staff together, you want to find as diverse of a group that can be productive together as possible. And I do think that includes a lot of different ways to diversify. So I do think that having experiences from a non-Division I athletic background has been helpful for me. As a student athlete, I understood things like planning team travel and planning team meals and helping with run a practice because we were doing that. We didn't have a full staff. And I wanted to coach. So that was always something that I would volunteer to do. But I think sometimes for Division I athletes, especially with coaching, they'll jump into a coaching position and they have no idea how the field gets set up before they get there for practice. They just think like these tees and machines magically appear. Well, there's 18,000 GAs and all these other things happening behind the scenes, and sometimes it can be a rude awakening to what that life really is. And you got to know that, Burton facilities. I mean, you all work harder
Yeah,
than anybody.
yeah,
So,
yeah, believe it or not, I'm fighting that battle. Ironically, I'm fighting one of those battles this week with one of our sports who literally just sprung a tournament on us like 2 days ago. So that's
yeah,
next week. So like the thing is, like, I just think it's important because uh, and and I think Jana would also agree that, like, when you're a like, some people don't know how things get done, and I just think that's more important. Heck, when I was coming up in Clemson football, they I was trained by Thad Turnipseed, who had done things for Nick Saban and then Dabo Sweeney, and he trained me to think practical, but also to think in the minds of how the coaches think. So, and that's I took that a lot, and like it helped me. It's helped me to this day. So now I kind of understand, and I can tell these coaches, like, y'all can tell me this, but I know this. Like, I've been in a staff setting before. I know what goes on.
I think,
So.
I mean, I think there's value in every level, right?
Yes.
And I think like if I was someone assembling a staff, regardless of the level, was like I would be seeking folks who have maximized and have engaged with the process, right? Like that's what
Right.
I would be looking for is the folks who maximize the opportunity that they did get. But I am a firm believer, and I've told y'all this before. My first job out of college was Division II, where I coached basketball and softball. So
Yeah.
what Joanna's talking about with setting up a field in February for practice, um, not for the light of
Right.
so it just doesn't magically appear, right? Which also I'm an indoor sport girl, so basketball all the way. But I think it's about, finding those folks that no matter where they have landed and what their experience have been, like who has sought out the most opportunity and maximized that time.
Hmm.
To
And
speak to the
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just to speak to the question on some of the favoritism, nepotism, whatever that might be in athletics, and that happens in every industry. I think the only way that you can really come out on the other side of that, if you don't have those predetermined inroads, is just to build your network as much as you can and as big as you can, and throw the widest net possible, because you just don't know what will happen later. I tell this story all the time, but when I was in grad school, 22 years old, I got into this heated debate with one of my classmates on Title IX in this class. He was a football GA. He was just a royal pain, and we were just throwing down, and then ended up becoming really good friends. And now it's Kirby Smart at Georgia, but then it was Kirby, the GA, that won't give it a break. And so it was just, you just don't know. You don't know who's sitting next to you. You don't know where you will end up, and who you'll be working with, and who knows you. And I think just seeing that as opportunities to get to know people, it can be really beneficial, not only for your professional climb later, but just how to deal with people in general. So cast that huge net for your network, because you never know how that will turn itself around.
No, you don't, especially in this business. But I like that answer that you just gave. So,
No, I love that too because I think the message is don't shy away from
hmm.
conflict as well,
Right,
right?
right,
So,
right.
anybody else have a question? I kind of wanted to ask generally, like something I ask of all of our guests is like, how would you describe your leadership style, and have you seen that kind of evolve as our life has evolved?
Yeah, I thought about this a little bit earlier today after you and I had talked, Jana, and it's really funny because our structure here at the NFCA is completely horizontal. We have our executive director, and then there are 11 of us, and everything is collaborative. We had a signage meeting earlier. Well, I'm not a graphic designer, I'm not our event manager, but we're in this signage meeting, and we're talking about, well, which way, I mean, this is real life stuff, right? Which way should these arrows point? We're going to convention, we're going to Dallas. It's a hotel you've never been in, trying to find the exhibit hall. And there's actually two. There's one kind of in front of you and one kind of behind you. So do you have two arrows? So you don't know what you're going to need to lead at any given time. And so I think to be the most effective leader is really understanding yourself as much as possible. And we did an exercise, I don't know, a long time ago at a different job, called Strengths Finder. I don't know if you all have done that or not, but yeah, Strengths Finder it comes with a book. but it's an online quiz. It is long. It takes a while. They ask you the same question 20 times. You just have to get in the right frame of mind to do it. But when you're done, it comes back with your 5 strengths, what you're really good at. And I was in a leadership session with Rhonda Revelle, who's the head softball coach at Nebraska. She's an amazing human. And she was talking about how her life changed as a coach when she just started embracing the strengths of her team and building those and building those and building those, because that's your differentiating factor, not the weakness. And the more time you spend trying to build a weakness, the more you become closer to mediocrity, then you become closer to greatness. And it really struck a chord with me. And it doesn't mean I still don't work on time management. I'm terrible at it. I have to work on it. But I'm going to spend more time developing those things that I'm really good at. And what I've learned is that I'm really good at brainstorming. I'm really good at coming up with alternative ideas that will work. I'm really good at getting projects started. I'm not good at finding the comma splice in a sentence. I am not very talented at, being able to adhere to a timeline. And so surrounding myself with those people and pulling those people very close to me help me. But I think as a leader, if you can default to what you're good at and then pulling what other people are good at and letting them run with it is important. And for me, that was always the biggest thing. Is I wanted my own projects. I wanted to be able to do my own things, but I wanted to do them, as much autonomy as possible. And so I really try to do that with anyone else who I'm working with. If we're doing a project, being able to work together and lay out the framework, but then say, okay, go run with it and understand it doesn't have to be your way. There are so many ways to do things well. So trust that person to know what they're good at and do their things well. You do your things well and have this collaborative environment where you can say the hard things, but you can also, do things in different ways to be able to unlock different pieces and levels of success. So I think that's been the biggest guiding principle for me. And I think it definitely changes. I mean, you think about leading athletics and a team, the way you coach in general has changed completely. And I'm always going to be a coach and a teacher at heart. And it's much more individualized now. And it's much more making sure that I know, what is Elizabeth great at? What is Shay great at? What can you do that no one else can do? And then making sure that, you get a chance to showcase those skills.
So what are your top five? I kind of want to guess based on what you just said, but
Oh, all right. You want to guess first? Or you want me to tell you first?
oh, do you have like strategic or ranger ideation in there?
I do have strategic. Yep.
So that's in my top five too.
Yeah. Activator,
Okay.
strategic. I have, I've taken it 2 or 3 times now, and sometimes woo comes out in like the fifth, but not always. Individualization will come out. Sometimes command will come out like fourth or fifth, but not the bottom two change a little bit. But yeah, the individualization, strategic, woo, activator. Yeah.
That you got some influencing in there. Yeah, I have strategic and individualization. If anyone's interested in learning more about this, I can get it for you. It's like 20 or $25. You can do it with the book or just a code. And I'm
Mhm.
happy to like have a one-on-one. I'm not certified, but I use it a lot in the consulting stuff I do, and it's what we use with Power and what Tori also uses in Tiger Leadership Academy with the student athletes. So
Oh, cool.
we do a lot around it. And the thing about it is like it gives you 34, there's 34 strengths. It gives you your top five. Okay. But what it says is like your 6 through 10, also depending on kind of where you are and what you're doing in life, the 6 through 10 might pop into your 1 through 5 as well.
Mhm.
I get very mad because I don't ever get achiever in my top five, and that angers me, but that's a different conversation. So,
Communication is the other one that is in a lot. And, I was an assistant coach at Central Michigan University for 5 years with Margot Yonker, who's a Hall of Famer, Olympic coach, gold medalist. And she didn't have any in strategy. Like none of her top five came in the strategy. And she would get so mad. She's like, I'm a head coach. How do I not have strategy? And I'm like, you are a Hall of Famer because you connect with everyone. Like I mean, that's what set her apart, right? But you're right on that, how you get kind of a little competitive with what you think should be in there sometimes.
if you
For
if you could see my planner and my organizational lists, like achiever is all over. But anyway, typical firstborn daughter, right? Anyway, So, questions. I've asked my two. Now it's your turn, guys. What do we got?
Um, I was just gonna ask if you could talk more about or like give go more into detail about like some of the educational like curriculum materials that you've created.
Course, that's been really fun, especially the last couple years, because we've taken a larger emphasis on the youth coaches. And that really started when I left Division 1, took the job here. My daughter started playing, and I was coaching the 6U Pixie Sticks. And I realized that the Pixie Sticks, they were harder for me to coach than any collegiate team that I had ever worked with because I was not in that space and that was not my skill set. I mean, just craziness at practice and kids running around and I mean the grass was bothering them. I mean, just things that you don't have to worry about with collegiate athletes. So we took that and ran with it. We have a partnership with Little League and we have a partnership with Major League Baseball. And a lot of their curriculum comes from us, as well as USA Softball, of just content for youth coaches. So that's been the most recent. We have really online resources of packages called coaching tools. So when you're a coach and you log into our website, you go to your coaching tools, and there might be one. The last one we did was on for collegiate coaches is on hitting. And so there's 8 different lessons that were actually given by All-Americans that we had over the last year. So it was our All-Americans saying, this is what they like to practice, this is how they like to practice, and here's some of the drills they like to use. So it was more student athlete led, which was different. We had not done that before. But then you'll see other packages that are charts and forms. We get that request a lot from coaches. I need a chart for pitching, or I need a chart for this. And we tell people all the time, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. I mean, there are only so many pitching charts out there. Like, take one, change the logo, and let's move on. And our coaches can't say enough about how collaborative they are. They share, they send us their things, they let us put it in a Google Classroom. One of my favorite educational things that we do, and I can't believe how little it's utilized, but it's a class for new collegiate head coaches. So any division, junior college, Division 1, NAIA, doesn't matter. If you're a brand new head coach, you've ever been a head coach before, we have a Google Classroom and monthly calls with other coaches where you can just ask your questions, and they share budget docs, they share student athlete evaluation forms, they share athletic administrator meeting facilitating forms, they share everything. And we have maybe 10 coaches across all collegiate divisions that are invested in the class. And it's just crazy to me because it is so hard. Your first year as a head coach is so hard. I think you just want to take every resource you can have. So that's all over the place, Shay, but that's kind of what we do. We're a hand in everything, but we try to keep a lot of it web-based. We try to keep a lot of it housed in our website in their coaches box so that they can get to the practice plans, the drills. The program that I'm most proud of was really born out of my dissertation, and it's our year-round mentoring program. We have 105 triangles of coaches at all levels. There's a pinnacle member who's been coaching for 20 some years. And then there's a coach that's right in that middle 7 to 10 year range. We see most of our coaches leave the profession about 7 years. That's when they're deciding I'm all in, or nope, I'm knocking on 30. I don't have a penny saved for retirement. I'm out. So it's kind of one or the other. So we're trying to take those coaches and turn them around that corner so that they become mentors too. And then a brand new coach of, I don't know what I'm doing. Dear God, please help me. And so we bring all 3 of them together. We match them. I do the matches individually of things that they want to work on and things that they want to grow in, and try to make that a match. Since we've started, We Coach and the Volleyball Coaches Association and others have taken our program and implemented it in their own organizations. And that's just really cool because I firmly believe that mentorship matters. I believe it matters in your ability to persist in a career, your ability to find work-life balance, which doesn't exist, is a whole other thing to talk about. But I think that mentorship key is a huge part of it. So a lot of things. If you can't tell, I'm passionate about it. So I'll try to stop talking, but there's a lot of things in there.
Well, you're here to talk, and I was going I was going to say, like, I can feel your enthusiasm through the screen. And so I feel like you're definitely doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that's always exciting to see on someone.
Sure.
Who else has a question? All right, Bryce, and then Liz.
Sorry. My name is Bryce. I'm a GA with event operations here at Clemson. And I work with coaches kind of hand in hand almost every day and throughout the week. I know that coaches can like be tough to kind of approach and they give off kind of weird vibes or they have a weird personality. What are some like pieces of advice that you would give to, have like a more personable relationship, but still maintaining that professional level?
That's a great question. I think for a coaching staff, there's always one coach on the coaching staff who's going to be organized, who's going to know your name, who's going to know where you get your coffee, who's going to be the person that will take care of you because they realize they can't do their job if you aren't good at yours. Usually it's not the head coach. And I don't know why. That's just my experience. Sometimes it is, but I think really expanding that conversation into different assistant coaches or so that you can have the insight that you need to do your job well. I think for the most part, as long as support staff, and that means academic advisors, compliance professionals, can be very specific and very efficient with what they need or what they're trying to get information wise from a coach, very respectful of time, then I hope most coaches are amenable and understand, how important your job is. But I think that there's always one that will make your life easier. And you never want to disrespect a head coach by going around them or making them feel that way. So you
Right.
definitely have to, keep them in the loop. But sometimes it's just finding the right person that can help you facilitate what you are trying to do, especially
Okay.
on the larger staffs.
Yeah.
I look at basketball games and there are more suits than jerseys. I'm like, who am I even looking at? So when you have those large staffs, I think it's even more important. Sometimes
Right.
the smaller staffs, it's a little bit easier. That's my experience, Bryce.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
But
Hey, Joanna. My name's Liz. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I was wondering if you could talk on your decision to pursue your doctorate degree and just like any advice, tidbits you have for someone who might be thinking of pursuing this path. If you were intentional about that specific program you chose, all that stuff.
You bet. Liz, I started it twice, and finished it once. So when I was coaching at Northern Illinois University, I took that job specifically because they had a doctorate program and I wanted to do that. And the head coach was open to it. 2 years later, the head coach retired and I was looking for a different job. And a doctorate program is a lot of years. And then, there were only a couple online options and they're like $80,000 a year. I mean, it just was not going to happen when you're making 25. So going to Central Michigan and having that educational benefit as part of my compensation package was huge. So that's the first thing is, higher ed, you all know it, is expensive. And how can you facilitate that path if that's something you want to do? So having the opportunity to do that worked really well. I always thought I would do athletic administration or something in that realm, but at Central Michigan, higher education was kind of the closest. And I'm so glad that I did that because the more we really look at student athlete populations and athletic departments, I think the more connection we can make with the university and the arm of higher education and it being a part of higher education is really helpful. And at the time, I thought when I finish coaching, I'm going to be an athletic administrator and I want to be able to connect with people on campus. And if I have a doctorate degree, they're going to take me more seriously. I'm not just this coach who only cares about athletics, right? I have a terminal degree in education and I value education, and I do. That is something that's very important to me. So those were all the whys and the hows. I will say, I thought the coursework in general was not very challenging until I got to the dissertation process. So I love going into a classroom. I love bantering. I love having the conversations. I love group projects. I'm that weirdo. There are a lot of those things, and that was perfect for me with grad school, and then also my doctoral program. When I started having the quantitative and qualitative and methodology courses, then the challenge came. But honestly, by that point in time, you're so invested with your professors and your staff that they're not going to let you fall off the path. So by that time, it was, I knew I wasn't going to do quantitative anything. Like I told you, I can't find a comma splice. Well, I really can't find the value of X ever. So I knew that it was going to be a qualitative method for me. And just being able to start narrowing those things down. My advisor is still one of my dearest friends. She's one of my first calls for parenting advice and professional help. You just spend a lot of time with these people, but that's what I found is that it was a way that I could challenge myself. And the best advice that I got from my advisor was the ideal dissertation, the perfect dissertation is a done dissertation. And so you're going to look back on it and think, I wrote this. This is terrible. I need to redo this. But that's not the point. The point is working through that process. And it's really earning the title because it's not in higher ed, at least what I can speak to, there aren't the same kind of skills, as my daughter would say, if you were a real doctor, right? There aren't the same kind of knowledge things that you have to know. So it's more about learning how to learning how to ask questions, learning how to understand problems, and that's an internal thing. That's something that you get to do and discover yourself. And for me, I was writing a dissertation with a little one and another one on the way. And I was so thankful for that time because that was my me time. And it vanishes quick once you're, in your profession. So I have nothing but good things to say about the process of that. And I would recommend anybody who loves school education, the challenge, go ahead and tackle it. I don't think you'll regret it, but it is a process and you have to be very graceful with yourself and very patient with yourself.
Who else? I think that was a great answer. I would agree with all of that. And Liz, if you're thinking about it, don't think about it too long. Just get
And
started.
yeah, truth. And there's never the right time. I remember going into my sport AD's office and saying, I think I maybe want to try this, but I don't think it's the right time. And he cut me off and he's like, there is no right time. There's no right time. There's not a right time for a new job. There's not a right time for a new degree. There's always going to be something you leave behind or just a piece that doesn't seem right, but you got to get over that hurdle. So.
And I mean, and the inconveniences of it and the difficulties of it are so temporary and so fleeting. But then once you get it, like when I walked across the stage to be hooded, some friends were there and they were like, I'm not a big smiley person. Like I have consistent RBF. And my friends were like, I've never seen you smile that hard or that long. And it's just something that uh, you do for yourself, and it's just the best feeling. So no one can take it away from you because you did it. You did it. So next question.
Hi, I'm Camila. Thank you again for coming. I had a question on what is your biggest struggle when teaching or reteaching coaches how to inspire as a leader?
Sure. The biggest struggle is getting them to read their emails. You probably have this problem, Bryce. They don't read their emails. You can't get them to get anything. So you gotta have the connection piece. And I think it's having coaches who understand the value of growth. Sometimes we get caught in the little tasks that take up all of our time and we think they're really important and they're not. And the one thing I've learned from our master coaches that we work with is that the secret sauce that comes with their national championships and their Hall of Fame bids are the connections they make with people and the way that they can get the best out of people, not what they know about a bunt defense, not what they can teach about how to swing a bat, how to run a 2-3 zone versus a 3-2 zone, any of those things, right? That's not it. But I think when you're in it, and your job's on the line and your team's not performing, that's where you focus. You focus back on my pitchers are terrible. How can I lower our ERA? Or I don't have a shortstop. What can I do? And we get stuck there. And that's the easy part. That's the easy focus. The hard focus is to really get bigger and start thinking about, okay, well, why don't you have a shortstop? What's going on in your recruiting process? How are you connecting to people? How are you working through the changes in the athletic landscape? How are you doing all these things? And a lot of people view that, especially younger in their career, as the fluff. And I did too. And as you get older, you realize, oh no, that's legit the game changer. When you can be good in those spaces, you're going to have to know your stuff. If you don't, you won't make it. But everybody knows their stuff. So to be different, I think it goes back to those strengths, right? How can you harness those, and how can you get the most out of those? I think the majority of our coaches, if they come to us and they're invested in their professional growth organization, they want to be good. So when we focus on our members and we focus on those who put in the time with us, it's really easy. But when we focus on growing membership and we focus on, for us, the biggest area for growth is travel ball, because our college coaches are already all members. If they want an All-American, they need to be a member. It's easy. Their schools pay for it. It's easy. But when the dad of a 14U team, why should they join? So it's helping those people understand, this is why you should join. This is how you will get better. This is how you will grow. And then we hope for the trickle down. You have more impactful coaches. You have coaches that are invested in the growth of the student athletes. You have coaches that learn the positivity piece as opposed to the old school berating piece. So that's our biggest struggle, is to really connect with coaches who might not see it as a necessity. And then I think, unrelated, but two, the slashing of professional development budgets is always a concern. And as we look and we see the millions of dollars that are going to be reallocated in collegiate athletics, it's got to come from somewhere. Even the SEC doesn't have a real money tree. So it's gonna come from somewhere. And we just are continuing to work to help our administrators understand, if you want student athletes to have the best student athlete experience, you can't cut out the middle manager of the coach, which is what they do now. It's administrator and coach, and then student athlete. The coach is the connective piece. So really, to keep the professional development needs of a coach in mind and to keep the funding for their professional development there, that's a big priority of ours too.
All right, Laura, do you have a final question to bring us home?
Yes. I know you kind of joked about like work-life balance at one point. How would you say that, like, or what was your biggest like tip for like balancing, like getting your doctorate, being in athletics, having a life, kind of something along those lines? How did you do it?
Yeah, I'm super passionate about this, Laura. And I think that there are so many different pieces to it. And the first piece is knowing what balance looks like for you. And it's different for everyone. Some people, balance for them is, I work part of the time at home and I work part of the time at the office, but I work all the time because that's what I want to do. And that's where my happy place is. Okay, great. Balance for others is, I am a caretaker for an aging parent and I need to be there. And that's what this looks like for me. And so I think really determining how you live your best life and what that looks like is key. And then being okay with it. I think that's the other part too. And people say it in a lot of different ways, right? Be where your feet are, be present. And that is hard. I mean, that's nearly impossible, I think, because anything that you are passionate enough about to spend your time on is going to throw your life out of balance. It just is. And so when I think about it, like, I have my professional life and I am a better mom, I'm a better wife when I am happy and challenged at work. If I am not, then I'm not a better of those two things. But I'm also aware that what my family needs from me changes at different times. And I have to be able to work those things out too. And so Shonda Stanton, who's the coach at Indiana, she's one of my favorite people to talk to about this. She talks about it all the time of spinning plates, right? You spin plates and you have to keep putting enough time in all the areas so that the plates keep spinning. But my family plate is made of glass. And if it drops, it's done. My professional plate is made of rubber, and if it drops, I can pick it back up and we can get it spinning again. So you have to prioritize the plates that you're spinning to be able to make that work. There are a lot of different ways. I know coaches who bring their kids to work and they're on the field with them all the time and they love it and they're good at it. For me, that was hard. I was more distracted by having my kids on the field with me in a game situation. I loved having my kids around the student athletes. There is nothing better than those role models. And I call a lot of games for the University of Louisville with ESPN, and my kids are on the field with them all the time. And I still love that I get to have that connective piece for my kids with a team. But really knowing yourself and being able to find the position that will work with what you want to do, being very upfront with your direct supervisor of what the expectations are and how that will work. I didn't have a single boss in any of my time, including now, that they had kids. All of the coaches I worked for were female, and some of them were super empowering, and others made it feel really difficult to do both. That's just one example. And then the last thing I will say, work-life balance, it's not just about parents. And I see this with young professionals. You need time to go play trivia. You need time to have a date. You need time to whatever it is. And I think a lot of times our single coaches or our single professionals in strength and conditioning, events, athletic training, that long hour people, they just get just dealt the worst hand possible because their balance is somehow seems to be less important. And that is just not true. Like your balance and your mental health and your ability to thrive is just as important as anyone else's. And so I think that, sometimes the world can make you feel like, well, I have this and this is more important. Maybe, but maybe not. And I think that the more you can embrace what you need to be in the best space to perform the best is just what your reality is going to be. And it might mean that you change job. It might mean that you change a location or have to have some really hard conversations. But I've been in jobs before. When I left, I didn't even realize I was unhappy. But I left and then I thought, oh my gosh, like this is so much better or different. But I wasn't unhappy because I love what I did. But there are just other situations. And I think it comes with awareness. And I'm just so happy that a lot of people now are thinking about that at 22, 25, 27, and not waiting until you're 40 and feel like, you're in the middle of a midlife crisis and then trying to figure it out. So kudos to you for thinking about it.
All right, guys. Well, I think that was awesome and a really good message to end on. I hope you took that one to heart. Liz, I was thinking about you when she said that coaches don't read their emails. Liz is in compliance. Smirk on your face. It's very
Bless you, Liz.
but I think that's a great message, and it kind of ties it all together. Like it's about awareness, knowing who you are, know what balance means for you, know
Yes.
know what your passions are and what's most important. So hopefully, guys, you're taking that with you. Joanna, thank you so much. Hopefully, we can get together in person sometime soon. And guys, have a
Yes.
great day.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to meet you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Feel free
you.
to share my email or cell
Thank
phone number
you.
for
I
anybody
will.
who wants it. Happy
I
to
will.
have it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.